You might have heard me talk about regrets before, the regrets of the dying. I didn't live a life that was true to myself. I instead lived a life that others expected of me. I worked too hard. I worked too much. I didn't express myself. I lost touch with my friends, with my family, and I didn't allow myself to be happy. The pattern underneath all of those was permission. Permission to live the life as you actually wanted to do. But knowing what you don't want is only half the work. It's easy to say what we don't want out of life. It's easy to say how we don't want something to happen. The harder question is what we actually want our life to happen, to contain. Not what I think I'm supposed to want, not what looks right from the outside. What would actually make your life feel meaningful? Today, we're going to go after that question. What makes life worth living? Life, when we can connect with life, we can start to grow roots. And roots help keep, say, a tree stabilized. It brings in nutrients. And when we think about life, this is sources of meaning, multiple sources of meaning. So if we have a well-developed root system, we are connected to our life in such a way that it's going to be hard to wreck us. But if we have shallow roots or only a few roots, anything will topple us over. So let's focus on how we can introduce sources of meaning into our life. Some common sources of meaning are things like family, things like work, your friends, like your home life, community, spirituality might be important, giving might be important. These are common sources of meaning. So these are the things that you can put in your life, the source, the well that you can draw from to find meaning in your life. But not all of these are created equal. A source of meaning isn't the same as a source of meaning. Because we have some, if we take that circle and look at it on the side, some of those sources of meaning are shallow, and some of those sources of meaning are deep. A shallow source of meaning is, psychologists call it an extrinsic aspiration. Popularity, fame, money, things like that. A deep source of meaning, that runs deep. Those are intrinsic. Those are things that really hit me in my heart. That's connection, social connections, friendships, things like that. What's interesting is not necessarily to say that we should cut out shallow sources of meaning. It is just to recognize, if we take a cross-section here, if we have a shallow source of meaning, popularity, fame, money, what have you, and we fully utilize it, that's different from having a deep source of meaning that we're not quite utilizing. So I might have a source of meaning for having a bunch of money, and I have a bunch of money, so I'm fully utilizing that source of meaning. And then maybe my friendships, that's a deep source of meaning, but I'm only like half of the way there. What's interesting is that you can get more meaning from a deep source even if it's underutilized. That's the power of a deep source of meaning. Again, this is not to say that you shouldn't try to get money. Money is necessary. It is just to say that trying to introduce more deep sources of meaning into your life will be helpful. And then we want to try to diversify those sources of meaning. It's common for people to have maybe one core source of meaning. This is my one thing. Say it's family or my job. And if I have this core source of meaning and all my other sources of meaning are only important insofar as I can have that core source, that works. I'm not here to say this doesn't work. It's just risky. So this happens quite a lot. If my core source of meaning comes from being an expert in my profession, I'm Dr. Anderson or whatever. What happens if I lose my job? Or it doesn't have to be a bad thing. What happens if I retire? Now I'm not that professional anymore. I've lost my core source of meaning, and all those other sources of meaning were attached to it. Or family, being a parent is my core source of meaning. And then risk management is about bad things. What happens if something happens to my family? I've lost all my sources of meaning, but it could be something good, like I become an empty nester. Right? There's no sources of meaning to take over if I have this kind of a system. Diversifying our sources of meaning, on the other hand, this is about kind of having more equal weight. So even if I lose one source of meaning, there are others to take over. Thinking about this is worth doing. Articulating this is worth doing. But then you have to go live it. That's the part nobody can do for you.